Hello guys, so today we have the V3 for the beta changes just came out for the 4.1 beta. So I decided let's just take a look through these. I haven't looked through them before, so this will be my blind reaction to see what changed about these characters. So what I expect is I expect Silverwolf buffs because currently her kit feels a bit clunky. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, but in the V1 or V2, I mean they're the same thing. The problem with that kit was that she had a lot of clunkiness to her kit because her elation trace required, like, I think it was 4.4k attack, which is not easy to hit to like max out her elation conversion, when for other characters like Sparksy is 3.6k. So what that meant is you had to build a lot of attack and like get a bunch of attack substats on her, but then that meant you couldn't build speed, which meant that she was like very slow and would only get a few turns per cycle. And then because currently there's no elation action advancer unless you count Sparkle, so then it led to situations where like sometimes Sparksy would straight up out damage her in the team just because Sparksy moves a lot more, and that and Sparksy's elation skill is also like a big portion of her damage. So yeah, hopefully they fix that. As for Evanescia, I think honestly her kit felt fine for the most part. Maybe they like give her more elation scaling, because the awkward thing with her is that she's like a split scaler, or more like a hybrid scaler, because she scales on both elation and attack. So then like sometimes you would want to run, like, I mean it's a good thing because she can use more supports, but then that also means like the elation buffers don't buffer as much as I feel like they should. And then for the Novaflare characters, I think Welt was fine for the most part. Seela, I think they should give her just slightly higher multipliers. Firefly is fine, like she's more than fine, she's like absurdly broken. And then Hole, I think they definitely need to buff her healing more, because there have been like multiple times I've been playing her even after Novaflare and my team just dies with her on the team, which should not be happening with, like, I mean, she's technically a version 4 sustain now, considering she got her Novaflare in version 4, so I think they definitely need to like buff her sustain. Like, her buffing I think is alright, but her sustain is not okay. Anyways, so without stalling any further, let's go through Silverwolf. So wow, they gutted that base attack, what the hell. So her base HP got nerfed, base attack got nerfed, base defense got nerfed. Oh, let me make sure this is okay. Alright, she got a lot more base speed now, so that's good. And then her max her energy, I think that's base, so now she needs less energy to ult. But then her like defenses got like a lot worse, and then her attack got like a lot worse. The base speed buff is really good, because as I already said, her like she had speed problems. But let's see, okay, alright, so this, alright, higher attack multiplier, top 8 buffs for 3 trips. Okay. So this is the enhanced basic attack. points of increases damage dealt. Special attack that allied targets can trigger one, so that's a thing. Triggering the other's method is not considered as an additional attack. Split did anything change about these? Because these look the same as in V1. Or like this was also in V1, I think. Increases when dealt by 15%. So before it was okay, so they increased the attack multiplier on the enhanced basic attack. Skill is unchanged. Alright, so now let's go through ultimate. Enters God mode. Voice is alright, deal imaginary elation damage equal to 90% split evenly among all enemies. Okay, and randomly trigger. Alright, so those are. Okay. So this deals like almost 3 times the amount of damage as before. Yeah, that's. So yeah, the loot box does a lot more damage, but I think those are just wording changes. Alright, talent. So they lowered the amount of points needed for her to get into ult from 80 to 60. After her return, can overflow by. Oh, and it can overflow by 240 now, and before it was 80. Although I don't think you're ever actually hitting 240. That was not without like not without not you can't I don't wait hold increases crit rate. Okay, so she has a crit rate buff now. After crit rate, oh, so this is like the Sunday trace or the E6 Sunday trace where it allows you to overcap your crit rate and then it gets automatically converted to crit damage. So that's gonna make that's gonna make building her relics like a lot easier because now you can, because getting crit rate rolls are not, if you overcap on crit rate rolls, they're not dead rolls because they get converted to crit damage. So I think that's really good. Crit, what the? Wait, huh? Is that a typo? For crit, what? So what's the point of even adding this if it's 0% increase? What? Alright, cannot use her ultimate after completely using 3 times. She exits. Hidden MMR is clear. So wait, so can she should okay, so it says it gets cleared, but then you can overflow it. So does it mean it clears? Does it clear the 60 that you originally had? I assume that's what that is. Okay, moving on. Technique. One instance. Okay, so her technique automatically gives her one of the top box things. Oh, they changed the name of it because it used to be tier 0, but now this absolute meta. I don't know, maybe Pride Win had something to do with that. Alright, Elation skill. Okay, they nerfed the MMR generation of the Elation skill. Okay, it's a bounce now. Alright, her Elation skill is a bounce now, so that means it's going to be a lot better than single target. Deal 6 instances of damage with each. Dealing... Alright, so before it was 200%, now it's 90 times 6, so... 90 times 6, that's... 540%. Alright, that's a pretty big deal. So 540% single target is actually to a random yeah, that's actually, so her single target performance is gonna be a lot better now from her Elation skill. And then did anything else get changed? Okay, nothing changed about her global passive. Alright, her E1. During enhanced base attack, damage taken by enemy targets increases by 20%. When leaving, the MMR will not be cleared, but will have 20% retained instead. Okay. Probably should have like the so I can just read it without the like all the costs out. Okay, so alright, so now with the new E1U, so before during damage taken by enemy targets increased by 20%. So now I think this is vulnerability. It should be, so now you get 20 vulnerability on her E1. And then now you retain 20% of the hidden MMR after you leave her ult. Alright. So this was her original E2, which was on the surface level looks broken, but in practice it like wasn't as good as people expected it to be. So now let's see. All buffs on this unit are extended by 1 turn. For every 120 points of MMR, gains 1 extra turn. Oh. Alright, so they just completely changed her E2. Alright, so her E2 was just completely changed. So now she... That's basically like... This is almost like E2 Finon, where she gains an extra turn in her enhanced state. For every 120 points. So... I'll have to test it out to see how often she can get this extra turn. But yeah, they just completely changed her E2. Because before it gave like this all type res pen, or it reduces all res to 0. And then there's this like damage stat or damage recording thing. But now I think this allows her to play better as a hyper carry, I think, because now she's not as reliant on Sparksy for her E2. Anything else? Okay, E4. Okay, E6. Okay, so original E6 does not enhance, does not clear. So yeah, in this one she originally, so this is like 25%. Merry Make is like an extra multiplier, so this is like 25% extra damage, and then she gains like, she gains like an extra turn whenever she like should get another ult. So then now, so it feels like they're like tapping more into this like top loot box, for her to deal more damage. But then I'll have to test it out to like actually see how it is in practice. Okay, and then they moved the absolute weakness thing to her E6. So this was originally in her E2, and then they moved this to E6. But then in turn they well, it's not exactly the same. Hold on, so before okay, so her original E6 made her action get advanced, but then now in her E2 she gets an extra turn, which is better than an action advance, because extra turns don't consume buff uptime and also don't consume AV. So then you're not put in awkward situations where like your turn's like 5 AV away, so the action advance just gets wasted. So I think this is a good change, and I think it makes her E2 a lot better, because like the concept of this, or the absolute weakness originally being in her E2 was a cool concept, but then in practice it's like, how often are you taking her into into non-quantum weak or non-imaginary weak fights? So yeah, all right, so her changes, I think I like what they did with her E2, because it sort of fixes her like speed issue. I'm sure I didn't miss anything. So yeah, her E2 does fix her speed issue a bit by giving her extra turns, but I think nothing in her base kit addresses the speed issue though. But the relation skills of being a bounce now instead of AoE is really good, because now she's a lot better in single target. So that's a good thing. However, that will mean that she's also worse in like AoE, but I think it's fine, because I think Yao Guang and Sparksy should like that full team already deals with AoE just fine. So I think making her AoE worse to like make her make her do like over almost 3 times the damage in a single target is a good change. so yeah, I think overall I think this is a good buff, but obviously I'll have to test it to like actually see how it is. So yeah, now let's look at Evanescia. Evanescia. Okay. And then I'll do the same thing where I can, just so I can like see it without all the like text and stuff. Okay. So her base stats stay the same. Okay, her... Alright, so they reduce the attack scaling, but she gains more punchline, which is what I expected them to do. As I said, I think they should have made her lean more into her elation damage, because she is an elation character. So yeah, this nerfed her attack multiplier. Talent. After accumulating 240 energy, consumes 240 now. Dealing. Wait, does this like? After accumulating 240 energy, consumes Wait, so does that like? Does she automatically use the energy as soon as she hits 240? Or... So originally, talent... when your energy is 240. So that... So is this 240 energy or 240 like like whatever else? So I'll have to see this in practice. I'm not sure like what this accumulated amount is. I hope it's not energy, because that would actually be really bad if her like if she can't like stack multiple ults. Although that wouldn't make sense, because then yeah, I don't think it's energy, because that wouldn't make sense, because then she could basically never ult. So wait, what's this? Okay, and this attack is now considered a follow-up attack. Okay, that's interesting. So this is now considered a follow-up attack, although I don't know how impactful that'll be, unless maybe you're playing her with like Robin and something. I mean, technically that means she can use Asheville, I guess. So yeah, this is now considered a follow-up attack. Though I don't think that actually matters. Alright, what else? Elation skill. Okay, so she gets 5 less certified banger from her elation skill, which is not great. But she already has like so much. Oh, hold on. I think it's fine because her skill itself gives more punchline. Okay, let's see what else. Nothing else changed here. Okay, let's look. Alright, they changed her abilities. So her E1 the res pen was changed to crit damage. That's not good. After... Okay, so they nerfed her E1. Which is kinda bad, because her E1 was like insanely broken, because this was yeah, her original E1 was like, it was like compared to like E1 Aglaya, because E1 Aglaya was broken. Because this E1 was broken, but now they changed this res pen to crit damage, which is not good because she's already stacking all crit damage. So they nerfed her E1 and then put the res pen into her E2. Participant ID. Like, what is participant ID? Well, what is this? Does this mention it anywhere else? Participant ID. What the? What does participant ID even mean? Whatever. So, when teammates gain certified banger, or when teammates certified banger ends, she additionally gains... Now, Evanescia additionally gains 50 of it as her own certified banger. Okay, so now she gains 50% of the certified banger of other characters' certified banger on her E2. Okay, I actually don't remember what her original E6 was. So certified banger increases by 1 more turn. Nerfed the Mary Makes. For every 100 points of certified banger. Additionally, Mary Makes by 2%. Okay. Oh, okay. Alright, so let me just read this in its entirety. Let me first check her original one. Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, this was so in her original E6, they moved it to her E2. So they moved her this part into her E2. And then for every 100 points of certified banger, by 2%, maximum of 1,000, so 20. Alright, so this can go up to 35% Mary Makes, so that is a buff. And that this like E6 Saber. This is basically E6 Saber. So overall, they did a lot. It's like hard to like tell how good these changes are because it's hard to like see what they did to the character that actually like play testing them and like saying how it affects them. But I would say overall, I'll have to see how impactful this line of the talent is to like, because they nerfed, they heavily nerfed her like attack scaling. So I'll have to see if this like talent makes up for it. And then they sort of gutted her E1. But then they moved the res pen into her E2 and then moved her original E6 into her E2 as well. So her E2 was a lot better now, but that's kind of bad because originally her E1 was really good, and then people I know people are saying, oh, they should make her E2 better. because it was like once you get to E1, then you like don't really need to invest further unless you get to E6 because the rest of her items were like not that good. And then they did buff her E2. Like her E2 is a lot better now. But it came at the expense of her E1, which is like, so now you're kind of forced to go for the E2 if you want to vertically invest in her, because her E1 isn't as impactful anymore, which is I'm not that happy about. Yeah, I'm not that happy that they nerfed the E1, but to be fair, it was a really broken E1. So I guess both of these characters are E2 bait now. Okay. Alright, now let's go through the Novaflare characters. Let's do Firefly first, because Firefly is my main. Alright, let's see. Wow, no changes. Crazy. Alright, 0 changes for Firefly. Which, I mean, I expected because our kit was already, like, really good. Alright, let's look at low. Alright, did anything change? Alright, his E4 got changed. How many targets in the waitlist state have their all type res reduced? Oh! Okay. So they swapped his E4 and E6. Crit, alright. Oh, alright, let me read this. So yeah, originally, so this was 20 crit rate and 30 or 50 crit damage, and then all type res pen, 30 all type res pen. So now, now this is the 30 res pen, and then they buffed the crit rating for damage by, because originally it was 2050, now it's 3060. So I think this is a good change because because now now this is like easier to obtain because it's on E4 instead of E6. So which is like, this is like the big like the big target to aim for with his idolins. So yeah, now this is a lot easier to attain. So I think that's a good thing, because this really only mattered if you were like playing DPS low. That's like a general debuffer. This was what people cared about, so I think it's a good thing that they moved this to E4. But yeah, I think that was all that was changed. Alright, let's look at Wolf. Okay, so nothing in her base kit has changed. Okay, so now we look at her. Okay, so E1. Just wording change. Damn, hold on, no changes. That's crazy. I mean, technically she's she's still like a really good buffer, but I really want them to like actually buff her sustaining. Like maybe like have some way to like apply her technique, this 25% attack reduction. I think there's no reason why this should be a base chance, considering it's not like she builds effect hit rate. So I think they should have some way for her to like reapply this debuff and then not make this debuff not make it base chance, because then it fails sometimes. So I don't know, maybe she can do something like every time she base attacks, then she applies this, but maybe that's too broken. I don't think. Not really. But I think if they made something like every time she does basic attack, she applies this debuff, then it would also like it would also make her an Akron support, which would be funny. But yeah, whole order seeing no changes, which is, I mean, is it surprising? Alright, Sila. Damn, nothing much changed for her either. Okay, well, her shield is not buff. I know, we'll just have to hope for V4, V5 to buff Sila. Yeah, the only Novaflare change was Welt's E6 and E4 swapping. That was it. Okay, so now let's look at the EMC changes. EMC. Okay, wording changes. Alright, ultimate. If enemy is defeated before Elation speed. Oh, okay, that's good. There's 3 punchline. Okay, so more punchline whenever they attack. What else? Okay. Our E6 ultimate additionally increases the speed of by 12%. Oh. Hold on. What was the original? The original was... Okay, so originally it made it so then... It makes it so then when originally it was like they also got their ult. So now... So now they don't ult themselves with their ult, but now they buff the speed of one ally by 12%. So this greatly improves their synergy with Silverwolf, because as I mentioned earlier, the one of Silverwolf's main issues was that she just had weird speed tuning stuff, because she didn't want to build speed because she wanted like attack. But now this buff along with her base speed buff means that she can now hit 134 relative. Well, yeah, because they also buffed her base speed from 90 to 110. So then she'll be at 12 plus, so 110 12 point, whatever, I'm too lazy to do math. Yeah, she'll get like at least a 12 speed buff, so then she'll be at like around 122, if not slightly more. Although she'll still need like a decent amount of speed subsets if she wants to hit 134 without speed other speed buffs. But yeah, this is the only EMC change, I think. So yeah, the E6 got changed. Yeah, I think that's the only change. Although I feel like they should have also like kept. I feel like this effect shouldn't replace the original E6. I think it should have been added on top of it because EMC like still did a decent amount of damage. EMC still did a decent amount of damage. So then but not letting them get their own ult is going to be like, it's going to be some damage loss. I don't know how much of a damage loss, but the problem is this speed buff is like, where would you even fit EMC onto a Silverwolf team though? I mean, it's good for Sparks and Evanescia too. But yeah, it's not that good for Silverwolf, I don't think, just because they don't really want to use EMC because she wants to use Sparksy and Yao Guang. But Sparksy and Evanescia both use EMC, so there's that. So the only big, or the only like actual changes were to Evanescia and Silverwolf. Silverwolf was overall buffed. Evanescia I'll have to see, but her E1 was like severely nerfed. Her E1 was severely nerfed, but her E2 was buffed by a lot. But I still need to see how this talent for Evanescia matters. But yeah, those are gonna be my thoughts on the V3 changes for the characters. And if you want to see me do showcases coming soon for the V3 characters, be sure to subscribe and let me know your thoughts in the comments about what you think about these changes. Overall, I think I'm positive on them because the Welt change is good. Silverwolf changes seem good. Evanescia slightly nerfed, at least her E1 was, but her E2, yeah, we'll have to